Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're excited to have you here. We are talking all about ethical storytelling today. We're going to give it just a minute for everyone to get logged in. So, as folks are dropping in and getting connected, say hi in the chat. Let us know where you are tuning in from. Amelia, our guest today, is traveling. So, if you are on summer vacation, plans for summer vacation, somewhere fun, enjoying the summer, or trying to stay dry in the rain, say hello in the chat. We would love to know where you're tuning in from today. Hello, hello. I'm seeing some familiar names. Thank you all for being here. All right. Well, it looks like most folks have gotten tuned in. So I'm going to do a little introduction and a little business. It looks like we have another Samantha tuning in from Portland, Oregon. Samantha, I feel like we need to meet. That's incredible. Tanya from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Catherine is here from Portland as well. Um, yes. And then, Amelia, where are you at today?
I am in St. Augustine, Florida, but I live in New Orleans, Louisiana. But I'm here seeing family.
Amazing. Well, we're so excited to have you here. I want to cover the business. I hear from Darcy that you can barely hear me. Hopefully, Darcy, if you just hit the audio up button on your keyboard, hopefully that will fix it. If not, let me know, and then I'll keep playing with the adjustments. In the meantime, let me. Oh, I'm hearing from multiple folks that Amelia has better audio. That might be true. She might have a better sound system than I do. Um, let's see. I
It just
will.
got better.
Oh, good. I turned mine up as well, so hopefully. And I'll just try to be really loud in my introduction. In the meantime, thank you, Samantha. I appreciate the feedback. Today we're talking safe to tell how animation unlocks storytelling with our partners at Next Day Animation. Amelia Bird is with Next Day Animation, and we have worked with her on helping us to collaborate and create incredible stories. And so we are excited to be able to bring her to the stage today. All of our webinars are offered because we have incredible partners that make them possible. We want to thank our partners at Gulf Status, at Bloomerang, at the Fundraising Event Company, at Next Day Animations, and at Zach Putnam Productions. All incredible resources for your fundraising event needs. Additionally, we want to make sure you know that it is being recorded today. You will get a copy of that recording, and all of our webinars live here on our education page on our website. So at any time, if you're looking to get our past webinars or you're looking to come back to this webinar, please do so. You'll find it on our education page. Some other fun things we have going on. We have webinars coming up that you can register on that same page. In August, we're going to talk all about finding the right fundraising tools and the hidden costs of good enough mentality with our friends at Bloomerang. And then as we prepare for fall fundraising event season, we have the final countdown, getting ready for your fall fundraiser. This is going to be a very tactical, logistical best practice from our friends at Do Good Events. So all of our webinars you can register on our website. You can also find on our website our podcast, the weekly fundraising elevator podcast, where you can find all the great experts that we get to talk to and learn from. And don't forget that our annual gathering is coming up next March, a deep dive into your fundraising event, the Elevate Conference, where Amelia joined us last year. So, with that, I'm going to stop my screen share. I'm going to introduce Amelia and kick it off to you for the presentation.
Thanks, Sam. You can see my screen?
It looks great.
Great. Small plug for Elevate. I went last year, and I think it's an excellent conference and
Thank you.
gathering. Um, So, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining. I want to give a couple of housekeeping notes and content notes. So, we will be discussing some sensitive topics today, as you might expect, including things like trauma, violence, and mental health. So, please take care of yourself and feel free to step away at any point if you need to. Um, the other note is that you can post questions in the chat at any time, and Sam is on deck to answer any tech issues and help you troubleshoot. We'll save content-related questions until the end of the webinar for the Q&A session. I'm Amelia. Amelia Bird. I am a creative account executive at Next Day Animations. I'm also a fundraising consultant, and I have been working in the fundraising and communication space for mission-driven organizations for about 15 years. I also have an MFA in nonfiction writing, which is where I really cut my teeth on telling real stories well. And I would say that if I had to name my professional purpose, it would be to figure out how to tell stories of redemption that have, in reality, a ton of contributing factors and a lot of ambiguity and that aren't over yet. Here's what this webinar will cover. We're going to start with an animation. I love to start with a story. We'll discuss risks and ethical challenges when telling sensitive stories. I'll show you some more animation videos. And we'll end with planning tips and launch strategies for making your own animated video. By the end of the webinar, you should walk away with ethical storytelling frameworks that's kind of specific for short form video, evidence on why animation improves retention, why it's a good format for this kind of storytelling, examples of videos about difficult topics, and a production checklist to help align your team for planning and launch for a video. So the challenge that brings us here today is that stories that are really important to tell, sometimes the most important stories to tell, carry risks. At Next Day Animations, we've created animations to tell stories about all kinds of sensitive topics, human trafficking, domestic violence, that kind of thing. And you'll see some of those today. These videos get used on websites, featured in campaigns, sent out in email, sometimes used on television. And they're also shown at fundraising events to drive donations, increase awareness and engagement, and sometimes to advocate for legislation change. Let's start with an example. So we created this video for Georgetown University's Center for Gender Justice and Opportunity. The center typically relies on data for persuasion in a lot of their communications, but for this, they really wanted to tell a story in a more human and concrete way. Their goals were to elevate public awareness of the harms of school policing on girls of color and the center's role in fighting it. And they also wanted to drive people to visit their website and donate. Michaela Rivera was the center's youth storyteller in residence at the time, and she wrote this poem. They recorded it in her own voice. And the animation was used on the center's website, on their homepage and landing page, and social media, and in a mass email. And when asked about, like, why did you make this video and why was it important, they told me, amplifying lived experiences and storytelling remains critical to the center's work, and this video is a great way to do that. As you watch it, I ask you to consider why they decided to use animation for this story rather than a live action video.
Eager and wide-eyed, I marched through the building of my brand new school. Fuchsia beads bounced on the ends of my braids, click-clacking against my backpack, complementing my magenta skirt, gifted to me by Grandma. I thought of Grandma today and how proud she was of me for carrying on her dreams deferred. I feel the eyes of a tall man dressed in blue. A gleaming security badge asserts his dominance. His words shoot at me like fire hoses, drenching me with shame. Your outfit is giving it all away. I never knew my 13-year-old body was there for the taking. An honor student, sent to the office like a delinquent. Given a plain t-shirt to cover up, my vibrant pink colors vanish under the school-appropriate white fabric. Walking through the metal detectors at school, each day feels like a prison. Whistles blown at us like dogs who need to be trained, criminals who have never committed a crime. Crushed in spirit and soul by the weight of low expectations, my story was already written for me. How can I feel free here?
So now I'd like you to take a moment and reflect and share in the chat. If this had been a live action video, what are some of the ethical concerns the creators would have had to consider? So I'm going to give us just a couple of minutes. Please digest, think a little bit, and share out in the chat. If it had been live action, what would they have had to consider? Thank you, Diana. She says it could have made this person a target for retaliation. Yep, it makes it vague and protects privacy. Re-traumatization. Thanks for naming that, Jordan. And Kashnita. Yep, objectification and sexualization of a minor and her age. Thanks, y'all. Very, very, very true. Keep them coming. And you'll likely name things that I might not always name. So I appreciate the group think on these topics. As you highlighted, featuring human storytellers isn't always safe or ethical. The clearest case here is privacy. So survivors, undocumented people, minors, whistleblowers, featuring them can put them in real danger. A student like Michaela could face retaliation at school, just as some of y'all mentioned. And since the internet is forever, this video could follow her into adulthood, and educators, employers, or peers could come across it out of context. We also risk re-traumatization, also named. Asking someone to relive their worst experience for a 60-second video is a pretty rough task. And even actors can experience emotional trauma. Portrayals can also unintentionally reinforce stereotypes. So a child's body or clothing or demeanor could read as part of the problem rather than the victim of it. And a live action reenactment of a story like Michaela's could reproduce the very sexualization being critiqued, inviting inappropriate scrutiny of her body, her clothing, or her demeanor. Live action also flattens narrative. So it pushes towards one real face of an issue, standing in for an entire population of people, which flattens the systemic problem into oh, maybe this was just her and this was just the school, into a single narrative when you're trying to show the scope of impact and have people feel it. There's also logistical barriers, which kind of brought up just with her age, for telling sensitive stories like this. Most consent releases don't explain risks or have the person walk through long-term impacts of sharing their stories. Most commonly, somebody will share their story really informally in a moment of trust without realizing that you put it in front of the public. And it's kind of hard to sometimes backtrack and ask for real consent and present the risks when the story has come to you in that way. Also, young participants of a program may feel pressure to participate in a storytelling kind of initiative because of adult authority or institutional relationships, or a true desire to help the cause, but they also can't always assess the long-term implications of sharing their story and being the public face of something like this. So considering all of these risks, let's say we don't tell the story, and the cost of that silence is real. People can't feel your impact. The campaign is weak and your messaging is really generalized. There are no proof points for legislators. Communities never see themselves reflected in your work. Silence isn't a neutral stance. It has consequences. Before we move to the solution, I ask you just to not actually share, just take a moment to reflect to yourself. What risks are present in the stories that you'd like to tell? What keeps you from telling them? So just think and note that to yourself right now. So how does animation help in a situation like this? I think someone named in the chat how the eyes create kind of an emotional relationship, but they're also generalized, so they're not specific, and that is a lovely way of portraying a large body of emotion in a small space. We're going to look at why animation works both on that kind of technical side as well as ethical side and cognitive brain science side. Animation lets us protect people's anonymity, still feel human-centered and personal. It evokes emotion, it can drive high engagement, and it puts the viewer in a better mood, even when you're dealing with a really hard topic. You can obscure or replace an image. You can use a pseudonym or mask a voice, and the story will still land. And we'll see several examples of this in a few minutes. Richard Meyer's Principles of Multimedia Design guide how we best combine words and images for learning. And animation hits four of these principles really strongly. So the first is coherence, which lightens cognitive load. The second is signaling, using color and motion to direct attention. Redundancy pairs audio and visual content without on-screen text overload. And spatial contiguity means that words and pictures appear together to kind of like double the meaning. Let's talk about brain science. So whiteboard animation engages multiple senses. Whiteboard animation is the one with the hand and where the drawing comes alive on screen. So you're engaging your sight, your hearing, and your imagined touch because your brain thinks you could be the hand. The step-by-step drawing process creates anticipation, and each time the image gets, because you're kind of guessing what it's going to be. Is it a dinosaur or is it a spaceship? And then when the drawing is completed, it's a spaceship. You get release a small hit of dopamine, and it engages the brain's reward and learning system. In a recent study, two groups watched the same script. One was a talking head, and one was the same voiceover with a whiteboard animation. The animated version was 66% more shareable, 33% more entertaining, and 15% more memorable. And on a content test, the talking head video scored a 70%, which is basically a D, and the whiteboard animation scored 92%, which is an A or a B, a high B, depending on the scoring system. So let's see how this plays out in some real videos. I've pulled some videos that are kind of like different ethical challenges, and also in different styles. As you watch, consider the risks that you thought of before that the story that you'd like to share poses, and see if you can find any storytelling tactics in these videos to help tell those stories. So the first one we're going to go to is Catholics for Choice. This is a religious history lesson about a sensitive and very politicized topic. Here's a video that we made, I think, last year for Catholics for Choice.
As Catholics, we're taught that abortion and Catholicism are like oil and water. They simply do not mix. Never have, never will. But where exactly did that come from? Many insist it's written in the Bible. But there's not a single verse that even mentions abortion, let alone condemns it. The closest passage about abortion is in Exodus 21, which explains the punishment for killing a woman should be greater than the punishment for causing a woman to lose a pregnancy. Does that sound anti-abortion? The truth is, through church history, Catholic theologians have disagreed about or been indifferent to abortion. Sure, Pope Sixtus V sparked controversy in 1588 when he banned abortion at all stages. But his successor, Pope Gregory XIV, immediately walked it back, proclaiming it didn't align with church teaching. And let's not forget Saints Bridget and Hildegard, who taught about and provided abortion. These are women who became saints. Hello? The church's condemnation of abortion didn't even start until the 1800s. So let's finally dispel the myths. Church teachings have changed over time, and abortion and faith can coexist.
The next video I have for you is about something deeply troubling from our history and our present, unfortunately, school gun violence. The Sandy Hook Promise used whiteboard animation to make this polarizing subject feel shared rather than political.
We all want our children to be healthy, happy, and safe, yet school shootings continue to be a threat. It's a difficult topic, with many different perspectives on how to address the issue. While the subject can be challenging, at Sandy Hook Promise, we focus on what unites us. Gun violence happens everywhere. Schools, movie theaters, grocery stores. That's why nonpartisan solutions matter. In our work, we don't endorse political candidates or fund their campaigns. We have conversations with everybody who shares our vision, regardless of their politics. We are nonpartisan, so we can work with everyone on this important issue. Why? because it works. By coming to the table with open hearts and minds towards a common goal, Sandy Hook Promise has passed meaningful legislation to prevent violence. Policies supported by both parties, in Congress and in states like Georgia, Minnesota, Louisiana, and Ohio. We're keeping kids safe across every corner of our diverse country by working together to find solutions. Join our movement. Visit actionfund.sandyhookpromise.org.
The next video has a sensitive call to action. ActionAid USA was launching a legacy giving campaign and program, and they needed to talk about dying and legacy giving without exploiting grief. Animation let them approach bequest giving in a meaningful, respectful way that they could share widely, and they still use this video and have used it for many years. So, legacy giving.
What do you want your legacy to be? Planning your giving with ActionAid means that you'll be part of lasting change. Your support will guarantee that our programs, our people, and our mission will continue for years to come. Making an impact can be as simple as adding ActionAid as a beneficiary on your life insurance or 401k plan, or naming ActionAid in your will. There's no cost to you today, and it's never too early to start thinking about planned giving. Legacy gifts allow us to better plan for the future. They help shape our advocacy, influence how quickly we can mobilize in the face of an emergency, and grow the number of voices who speak truth to power. We've already accomplished so much together. Let's double down on our progress. Contact us today to ensure your legacy lives on through a meaningful gift.
And the last video that I have is a first-person story. Star Davis, a survivor, won our Animations to Change the World grant a few years ago. So this was made with grant funding from us. She led the writing, starred in the animation, and even provided her own voiceover. Not every story calls for this, and sometimes we even dissuade people from using first-person voiceovers because not everybody's made for voiceover and not everybody has a great studio. But in this case, well, I think it really worked, and her voice was very critical to how it turned out.
Hi, I'm Shavantane Davis, but you can call me Star. I know what it's like to grow from a confused child experiencing sexual abuse into a resilient and hopeful young adult. Experiencing sexual abuse or being trafficked can leave you feeling angry, ashamed, and alone. But I'm here to tell you that there's a way out. I founded the Star Institute to help kids recover from their abuse and live out their dreams. The Star Institute is a resource for survivors, their parents or trusted adults, and anyone who wants to help prevent trafficking and abuse. When you're being abused or exploited, you might feel trapped by people or circumstances. And not everyone deals with their abuse in the same way. So we all need different resources. The Star Institute is here to help you find a way out. We connect survivors to care and support services. We're working towards opening a home where girls who have been trafficked can live safely and process what they've experienced. We also have educational resources like a workshop called Sex Trafficking Awareness and Safety 101 that teaches you how to recognize sex trafficking so that you and your friends can stay safe. And My Safety Starts With Me, a guide for kids and their trusted adults to talk about safe space and setting boundaries. Here at the Star Institute, we know that being able to tell your story and have your voice heard is healing. Abuse can't silence us. When youth have a voice, they can change the world. Just look at me. To learn more about what we do and connect to a network of support, follow the Star Institute on social media. I'll see you there.
Agree with you entirely, Jenna. I think her voice is really important here. And she's still doing this work. She is a speaker on sexual abuse, and Star Institute lives on today. She's now very grown, though. This was many years ago. So just to pull out a few helpful tactics from this Actually, let's take a second and just take a deep breath. That's a lot of content and a lot of kind of like heavy topics. So, all right, now we can think about how. So, here are a few tactics that they used that I think are worth pulling out and talking about. So maybe you noticed the tonal element and the kind of like scope and the range that we saw from the Michaela's story at the very beginning to the more hopeful music of the last video that we just saw. Things like music, the tone of the voice and the style of the voiceover, and the animation style can and how your characters are portrayed. All of that stuff can help set the tone of how serious, how light that you want the video to be. Humor can seem like a no-no with sensitive topics, but I think that the Catholics for Choice video has some really key moments. The little that the priest does, and also like does that sound like anti-abortion to you? Hello? Like those kinds of moments. It just like lightens the mood a little bit. And moments of humor can give your audience like kind of a memorable moment of relief from an emotional journey. And that those kinds of moments can build trust with your audience. So if it's appropriate, consider how you could implement a little humor or lightness. You can also pose aha moments as questions to keep things a little bit lighter. And you'll notice that a lot of these videos used the generous universal we to encompass a more broad base of like we're all in this together feeling. So you can call upon a universal truth or desire or human right, or something that this is all something that everyone should have, and that can bring people together on a polarized topic. And while data is really important, and while showing a systems-based approach is also like a really great approach, using a single character in an animation can help like humanize an issue and give it a like kind of an emotional root. And I would love to hear a little bit about if any of these resonate for you or what other tactics that you would like to bring up for the group. So what storytelling tactic could you employ with your sensitive topic? If you're thinking about the risks that you have and what you'd like to tell, is there anything in these that felt like an inspiration to you or something that you might be able to utilize? Please reflect. Please share in the chat. Beth says, love the idea of an animated character being able to represent the target audience, but then still be relatable because it's not any one person. It's a character anyone could see themselves in. And I'll give just a moment in case anybody wants to bring anything else up. And feel free to add tactics that I haven't named yet. Animated video paired with a composite story, which could be very effective. Absolutely, because you can display continuity a lot easier with animation. Talking about branding and color. That's a lovely thing about whiteboard is that you can insert your brand colors into the schema and have it feel a unified. Thanks y'all for sharing. And feel free to keep adding to the chat. So now let's think about planning. So you're ready to tell your story, you've thought through the risks. I'm going to walk you through the 4 lenses of ethical storytelling that we use at Next Day Animation. And we've organized them via our company values, which are clarity, authenticity, partnership, and inventiveness. For clarity, what do you want the story to do? And pair that with who is your audience and what do they already know? And what do you want them to do and feel? Regarding emotional response, research has shown that stories that focus on hope have a higher success on inspiring the audience to act than stories that focus on fear, guilt, or sadness. Authenticity to us means telling stories with heart. So we think a lot about whose story this is and how are they involved in telling it. And I know that Swaim Strategies is very aligned with this and does lots of first-person storytelling for event event speeches and fundraising. So thinking about like what lived experiences and assumptions or bias might show up in your portrayal of a story of a program participant is also really important, as is inviting somebody from that community to review and be part of the telling of that story. Here's where you should also like consider all the risks to your storyteller, talk to them about it in depth, and document all this in a service agreement. So this is more detailed than a just a consent release. And also an ethical approach here when we're talking about these hard subjects is to be solution oriented. And when you're solutions oriented, you should frame those solutions as concrete, as collective, and as conceivable. So, thinking about working together with our storytellers, whose voice is telling the story? Can a voiceover artist embody the subject well, or does it need to be told in the voice of the storyteller? And then, like, how is your consent process? I like Philanthropy Without Borders has a really strong consent service agreement. So if you want to look that up, that's a great template for you to start with. And another ethical kind of storytelling approach here is to use assets-based language to represent a community or individual respectfully. And then our final value and recommendation is inventiveness. So this is where your story becomes art, and animation is a natural fit for sensitive stories because it lets you center people or systems, control representation of identity and body type, and choose a style that builds trust with your specific audience. And here's a few pro tips. Invite the viewer to be part of the story. We helps with that. Invite the impacted community to be part of the writing or the review process in the production of your video. They should see it. They should resonate on how it feels in representation. And if you find yourself toggling between words, which I feel like a lot of us have in writing about or telling stories about hard subjects, if you're using words to describe a population or a person, something like unhoused or marginalized, stop and ask yourself why. And if you can use something that's assets based instead, or center a universal desire instead, like housing is something that we all need. Now let's get a little bit more practical. Here's how to keep your team aligned from kickoff through the launch of your video. There are a few things to confirm before you start producing a video. One is that we know our goals. So you've articulated your why for making this video. You've defined your audience through an inclusive planning process. One thing that at Next Day Animations that we hear a lot from clients is that the process of making a video is really helpful because it encourages you to distill your messaging into a really tight soundbite. And the more people you include from your communications, marketing, program teams, even your participants in the creation of that messaging, the more aligned you are in how you talk to people on tours or just casually in an elevator. So, the more inclusive you are, the more you can get out of the process of planning a video, which I think it can be transformative for an organization, branding wise. Second, we center whose story this is and who's telling it. So we have informed consent, we have community review, and we have somebody to check our bias. Third, we have informed consent. So that means a service agreement, privacy options, and you revisit these regularly. So a consent agreement has sort of this is how long we're going to use this story built into it. But it also has, if I want to revoke this at any time, this is how I would do this. And it shares with the person how that video is being shared, to what kind of audience, for what purpose. And it outlines all of the risks that are involved with that sharing. Fourth, we've made the story accessible. So using translations, if we have audiences of multiple languages, subtitles, visual accessibility, we have it at the right reading level, etc. And then last, we tell the story with integrity. We're solutions oriented, we're strengths based, we're avoiding savior framing. All right, more about planning. At the end of the webinar, I'll provide you with a few resources, and one is a video planning worksheet that we use with new clients to help them plan for their videos. This has key prompts around like your goals, what action you want the audience to take, what they might already know, what they need to know in order to get the call to action, that sort of thing. And it also has these like kind of like sliders between serious and playful. Where do you want your video? And then casual and formal. So it's helpful to start thinking about those spectrums. And that's another place to remember like humor can be a really good tool if it feels appropriate. So how can you take a really serious topic and make it a little lighter if that goes with what you're trying to get them to do? Or do we need to go more formal and remove that sort of thing? There's when you make a video, it's a big investment and you can use it for a lot of different things for a long time. Animation is great because you don't have a single staff member or, talking head who may or may not move on to another organization or job or win the lottery. And it also has like kind of a stylistic stickiness that can work for many years. So plan for a wide multimedia launch by repurposing that content of the video however you can. We advise vertical cuts and cut downs of 15 and 30 seconds so that you can use those on social media. Thumbnails can lift your click-through rate by about 7%. Separating your audio can be used for radio or podcasts, and using pull-out quotes and images to drop into newsletters and emails is a really great way to repurpose. When you're planning your video launch, you should plan for it to be as many channels as you can. So website landing pages, ideally kind of like a permanent landing page. We also recommend putting it under an email signature so it shows up over and over for people. That I know that the legacy giving is on the email signature of some of their fundraising staff and has been for years, and it's something that just kind of like builds recognition over time. YouTube, of course, paid socials, sending it to partner organizations, using it at events. We do quite a few videos that get used at fundraising events as the sort of like peak of the arc of the event, especially if you have a really strong story, but somebody who doesn't want to get up on stage. It's a really great way to use that at the event and send it out afterwards and use it for lots of other purposes. And it's a great follow-up piece too. You have a donor meeting or you have a meeting with a potential partner and you can follow up with a video that may be on your website, but just to bring it up, it helps with long-term viewership. Search engine optimization basics. This is not my total bailiwick, but I do know that you should use a keyword-rich title, and the first 80 characters count the most, and then a full description with SRT and captions. When you're measuring your success, make sure to look up YouTube statistics, social shares, donations before and after the video, program enrollments, the thing you're trying to move the needle on, measure it before and after, but also know that a video launch, the change might be incremental over time. So measure it at a week, measure it at 2 weeks, measure it at a month, etc. At Next Day Animations, we provide our clients with a lot of information about how to get the most out of the launch of their video. We take them through a whole hour-long consultation about their goals and give a lot of recommendations. And I've distilled a lot of these recommendations into a resource, which is a handout with all of our tips. All right, and our final and very optional reflection is, I'm curious also just for my own learning. Did anything you learned today feel like it's going to help you with your storytelling about sensitive topics or work with short form video? Please drop it into the chat if you'd like. And next, I'm going to give you a link. If it's easy for you, Sam, you could drop it into the chat, but I think I can also grab it. This
I can grab
is
it.
Thank you. This is a website where you can um, download those resources. So we have an ethical storytelling checklist. This is something I developed with Daria Ford, who's an ethical storytelling master, really. She presented at Elevate last year, and she does a lot of great work in this field. So that is one. The other is our video production planning worksheet. This is really something that we use with clients. It's a great aid for your team. And the video launch tips is something that we also have developed over the years. So please enjoy. Those will be available for 1 month, so get them while they're hot. And then I also wanted to share that we really love connecting with mission-driven organizations. SWAYM is a great partner who works deeply in their community and also just nationwide. So since we've connected with you, we would love to offer you a discounted video. Our process for doing this, in this case, includes a free story discovery session. This is where you would meet with me and our award-winning playwright and scriptwriter, Gemma, to go through like, what is your story? What is your goal for the video? What do you want this to do? And then we'll give you kind of like a story brief that'll show the arc of your story and how it would work in a video format. This is a free tool that you can have whether or not you choose to work with us, but it's a great first step in planning your video and getting to know what's possible for you. So we also offer nonprofit discounts. So the 15% off a video and the story session is in addition to our nonprofit discount. All right. That is, I wanted to keep this less than an hour and I succeeded with lots of videos. So here we are ready for questions.
Amelia, thank you so much. I wanted to take just a second to share my story because we engaged you all for a video that wasn't a sensitive subject, it was just a complicated subject. We wanted to talk about the neuroscience of the paddle raise moment at an event. And there are so many layers of like group dynamics at play, immersion at play, neuroscience, bio, sort of responses, and you helped us to really beautifully distill that down. So it wasn't just a sensitive or hard to talk about subject, but also was just a like complicated subject.
Yep.
And Gemma is fantastic, is an incredible scriptwriter. So I see that Carolyn asked, could we at Swim Strategies help? Yes, we produce videos all the time, but the team at Next Day Animations is a great partner, and they have a lot of incredible resources, including scriptwriters that can really help you with that story. I also see you have a couple of incredible folks on the call adding their takeaways and asking a couple of questions. So I want to throw a few questions your way that I've seen in the Q&A, and then encourage folks, if you have other questions, drop them in the chat, drop them in the Q&A. The first question that came up was when you were talking about explainer animation, the idea of the hand-drawn animation. Are there other types of animation?
That's a great question. So we do whiteboard animation, which is the hand drawing, and then we have a signature style. You saw that they might have looked a little bit similar, and a lot of the images, all of the images in the presentation were made by our team, and a lot of those were whiteboard animations. And then we also do 2D. So Michaela's story at the very beginning and the Catholics for Choice were 2D, where it's more block color. Those are a little bit more, they take a little bit more time to create, but they often have a little bit more motion graphics. So those are the two styles that we predominantly do. We do some 3D, but that's mostly for like medical technology. Maybe you need that, but maybe 2D or whiteboard is great. And whiteboard as our most affordable option has all of these great neuroscience like research about why it works. So I think it's especially good for internal communications or anything that feels like that you really want people to engage with it, because people see whiteboard and they're like, oh, I'm learning. Yeah.
I love that. I love also the dopamine hit. I mean, if we're using this video as a video for engagement at an event, that dopamine hit is a value add for sure. I wanted to acknowledge that you have a question about a client story, and you have two incredible folks on the call, Deanna Heinrich and Jenna Watanabe, who both are very supportive of how do we continue to evolve our ethical framework best practices? They continue to teach us and push us. And oftentimes, because they are working on client storytelling and how to engage the client. And one of the questions that you got was, what is the process for securing that client story? Do you interview the client? What is the scripting
Mm.
process? Do they write their story? What does that look like with your team specifically?
That is a really great question. And I personally haven't gone through it in a way with an organization and a client storyteller. I would love to bring Gemma into this to because I think that she would be an excellent person to hear that story and help craft a narrative. But I think if it's something that you have already collected, like that's something that we do all of the time. So I think the answer is yes, we would do it. And I'm curious. I think the consent conversation piece would be best held with your team because it's a trust building experience.
Mm-hmm.
Sharing potential risks, talking through how to mitigate them, telling them about your audience and your purpose. All of that stuff is a vulnerable place for you and for them. And to have those conversations can lead to long-term relationships with the folks you're sharing the stories of. So I would encourage, and we can definitely advise on how to have that conversation, if you need us to. But I think having that conversation first and then bringing us in as a way to shape the story and bring it to the public.
Um, there was a quick question. Is there an ideal length for video?
Oh, yes. So we think you can do a lot in a minute and a half. A lot. And once you get to about 2.5 minutes with animation, you start to like disengage with a this is a punchy short thing that I should be paying quick attention to. But so we've priced things out by 30-second increments. So we start at 30 seconds, but we end up at a minute and a half with most of our clients. And you'd be surprised at what you can fit there.
So you already just said pricing.
Mm.
That leads to several questions that you have, including one that's in the chat right now about how to kind of create the case for an organization
Yeah.
who needs to present this to leadership and the board.
Yeah.
You had two questions that really speak to this. One, do you have a place where people can find examples of your work that they can share? I want to just advocate people will get this video if you
Mhm.
signed up, but where can people find those examples? And then how do they start to budget or plan for costs aside from obviously booking a
Yeah.
meeting with you?
Yeah. We have if you look at our work section of the Next Animation site, we have a bunch of case studies of different kinds of animation styles, and purposes, and like how the impact of those drove engagement or donations over time. I think some of the more relevant ones for this topic is Streetwise Georgia, which we have a case study on our site. And that was one that was developed during a rebrand and sort of like a refresh the like kind of case for support for the organization. And they used it at a fundraising event and made the most they had ever made at $250,000 at that moment. So that's a good one with some tangible metrics. And it's kind of hard to have tangible metrics with video because their goals are kind of like inform people of what we do, which is, unless you're surveying people before they saw it and afterwards, it's hard to, and who's doing that? But so other things that I think are important for thinking about pricing and making the case for leadership. So I mentioned that they're nearly evergreen. Of course, animation is evolving and things are happening very quickly in that space, but these styles have been around for a while and have a kind of timeless look and feel to them. So, investing in a video that has a really high quality of writing and scripting in it, which is way higher than you're going to get within any kind of like AI prompting, and a lot more original. So, you will be able to use that for years and years and years, despite staff turnover or client turnover, or out now this 5-year-old is 15 and doesn't want to be shown anymore, which happens a lot in youth serving organizations. So that's a piece of it. And and then I think you can also like use all of these ethical reasons to back it up. Like we are learning every year. Like ethical storytelling wasn't a topic a few years ago in the way it definitely should have been, and now it's like everywhere because everybody's thinking about it and are thinking about language and what's appropriate for how to talk about people, and the change we're making in the world is evolving all the time. Um, but so it's a safer bet than an in-person video, I would say, if there's anything sensitive. I can tell you the range for videos. It starts at around $5,000. It's not a small endeavor, but that gets you something that you can use for many years. And also, I would advise you to kind of look at places that you might have like outreach funding in a grant budget, because you could use outreach funding to fund something like this. This, as long as it's being used at public events or on your website, it counts as outreach. And a lot of that's built into budgets.
I noticed, I wanted to thank Bess. I noticed that Bess is on the call and she's adding
Yes.
in some links for you of
Thank you, Bess.
where we can find examples of your work. We will take that link and put it in the recording as well as the Calendly link to book time with you. Booking time with you and Gemma also allows for a proposal and a quote. So
Yeah.
for anyone who's interested in actually exploring this and getting something you can take to your board, that 30-minute call could help you to do that. There was one
Mhm.
question that came in early on that I also think factors into the pricing discussion, which is, do you secure the music and the voiceover artist?
Yes, we have in-house voiceover artists we work with. You might have noticed that one of them repeated and had a slightly different tone for two videos, which is kind of interesting. So we work with real voiceover artists and who are professionally recorded in a studio, and we also work with people in translation who are native speakers. And we could do Spain Spanish, or we could do Central American Spanish with our voiceover artists that we work with. We secure music that is we get all the rights to that. And this is something that you can like kind of, I don't know if copyright or patent is the right word, but some legislation came out in the spring that basically anything created by AI cannot be patented or it's not proprietary content. It's repurposed. That's technically how it is. But since everything in these videos that we create is original, like bespoke illustrations for your organization in your colors that are used by you, that's something that you can have on lock.
Thank you. So Amelia, Jenna Watnavia is on the call, which she's with the fundraising event company, and she
Hey, Jenna.
produces, I think, I don't know, Jenna, give me a number, probably like 50 videos, 60 videos a year, a lot of content. And she is looking at how does she schedule, plan, and think about, would a client have a timeline appropriate? So can you
Yeah.
walk through like best case scenario, what's your typical timeline into from intro call all the way through like final product?
We
Jenna
price
says
things
yes, 40
by
videos a year.
That's excellent. We price things out by timeline. So we can do 6 weeks, we can do 4 weeks, we can do 2 weeks. Our name implies that we can do things the next day, and that could be possible. But generally, it's like a couple of days would be our highest rush pricing. But 6 weeks is our standard turnaround time. All of that really depends on your approvals and your internal processes, though. If you're involving 18 members of your team and they're all signing off on the script, it could be a lot slower than that. So we do love an inclusive process. We recommend keeping just thinking about how big your group is when you're also thinking about your timeline for when you need it. And we can always backwards plan with you and make suggestions. Oh, you need this in 2 weeks. You might just want one or two executive decision makers in the calls with us. And you're running your whoever else you want to see through it on your own. Um, but yeah, those are some things to think about with timing.
I can also say, Jenna, from our process perspective, it was a very quick turnaround when it got to the decision to move forward. The first sort of exploration, get everyone sign off, get everyone approved, is what took the longest. But we had two steps to the process that I'll include in your thinking and planning. Is that we got all key stakeholders on the phone with Gemma, Amelia, and the rest of their team, to be able to share the story. And so we had an idea of like, here's all the complicated elements we want to include. How do we make that a 1.5 minute video? And that was about a 90-minute call that we explained, talked through answered questions. And then, as a follow up to that, the second piece that we included were other examples of that story, meaning we had written a blog post or we had a case study that we had done, and we sent that so that their team had sort of a reference point. And then the scripting process, I was blown away at how fast that was. We typically do the scripting, and Amelia encouraged us, let us do it for you so that you have a third person in the process. And it turned around so fast. We had a couple of minor changes. And once we locked in on that script, that's the other key element is the script, the animation is designed to the script. So the script has to be locked. If you get to the final product and you see this would just be so much better if we cut that one line, that is an easy edit, but rewriting is not a part of that process. So that was the longest time for us, Jenna, was getting from ideation to script draft one to final script, because we did a couple back and forth rewrites on it. So
what that script looks like, the script looks like, just for your sort of imagination, it's like the writing of what the narration would be, and then we also do this, a shot of five people at a party, somebody walking through a door and wondering where their backpack is. Like we'll describe what the animation, what the visuals are going to be for that. So you're editing both sides. And once the script is locked with like these are kind of the visual ideas and the exact voiceover, then we'll also send you samples of this is what we're thinking about for this character. This is how your color, your branding will show up in this party scene, that sort of thing, so that you can also sign off there. You'd also choose your voiceover artist. So we'll send you samples of our different teammates who do those, and you can also choose the samples of your music. So you have a lot of creative control in the beginning, and then we kind of take that and run with it. And our animators hand draw everything from scratch.
There was one other asset that I would add that we provided, which is we also gave you a library of our brand identities.
Yes.
So we gave you logos, we gave you our hex color codes, and we gave you our fonts so that it could be represented in the process from the jump.
Yeah.
I want to close with a comment that came from Deanna that I just want to share because it may have gone by and you may have missed it. But when we're talking about sort of ethical storytelling best practices, the evolution of those best practices, which continue to evolve every day, and the client interview story, one of Deanna's comments was that it's really about the relationship with the client. Your team at Next Day would be critical to fill in the blanks around the information the client needs to make the decision of whether or not to participate. Plus, nonprofits need a lot of partners like yourself who already have the awareness of the needs so that informed consent, ethical storytelling can be applied. So thank you for that, Deanna. I think that I want to advocate and strongly encourage everyone to take a look at the resource link that Amelia shared, because there are some informed consent policies in there. I think we assume and sort of make some assumptions for individuals often, and it's really important that we're making that ask every single time we're sharing their story, and that we always make it something that they can choose not to share. So I appreciate the work that you're doing in this space, Amelia, to continue to advocate for the clients and the protection of people and not continuing to create harm or re-traumatize, and still giving the nonprofit a space where they can tell impactful stories that are meaningful and true, with some protections involved. So thank you for joining us today. Everyone on the call will be getting the copy of this recording. And if you have any other questions or follow-up, I encourage you to book a call with Amelia, because it will be an exploration opportunity for you. So I'll drop that link again before we hang up, but I'll include it in the recording that goes out. And Amelia, thank you for being here, even in the middle of your vacation travels. I hope you have safe travels.
So happy to be here. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking this time with us and thinking about this with me. And now I'm going to go to the beach.
Enjoy the beach. Have a great summer, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.